I thought taking a little trip would be harmless. A brief escape, a tiny adventure to remind my husband that sometimes, a woman needs space, that life isn't just about following his rules. My name's Vanessa, I'm 32, and I never imagined that 3 days away could completely unravel everything I thought I knew about our marriage. It started as a spontaneous idea. I'd been feeling restless, smothered even with Mark. Not that he was controlling, he wasn't, but he was predictable. Always home by 6, always planning dinner, always asking if I needed anything before I even thought about it. I told myself I loved his care, his reliability, but lately, that predictability felt like chains. I wanted to remind him, gently, that I was my own person, that I could have fun without him and maybe make him miss me a little. I packed light, a small suitcase, a few dresses, nothing extravagant. I kissed Mark goodbye that morning, making sure to whisper, "Just a little trip, don't worry, I'll be back soon." He smiled, the kind of smile I'd always loved, the one that made me feel safe and understood, but I could see the flicker of something in his eyes. Concern? Skepticism? I brushed it off. I wanted this to be my escape, not a lecture about his feelings. The drive to the city was liberating. Music blasting, windows down, wind whipping my hair, I felt alive. I checked into a small boutique hotel, nothing too fancy, nothing too conspicuous. I told myself I was being clever, independent. I spent the afternoon exploring streets I'd never walked before, stopping at little cafes, chatting with strangers, feeling the thrill of being anonymous, free. By evening, I had met a group of women at a wine bar. They were chatty, fun, and slightly reckless. One of them suggested we go out dancing later, and without thinking twice, I agreed. Mark would never approve of staying out late, especially on a weeknight, but that was the point. I wanted a story to tell, a small rebellion. My pulse quickened, a cocktail of excitement and guilt swirling inside me. Back at the hotel room, I texted Mark casually, "Dinner was amazing. Can't wait to tell you all about it." I didn't mention the dancing, of course. I rationalized that a little omission was harmless. It was just a trip. He had nothing to worry about. I laughed at myself, imagining him reading it and smiling, maybe a little relieved that I was safe, that I was happy. The night out was exhilarating. The music pulsed through me, the drinks loosened my laughter, and for a few hours I felt like I was in a completely different life. One of the women dared me to text Mark a playful message, just teasing him about how much fun I was having. I typed, "Wish you were here, but maybe you couldn't keep up, winking face. Set. A small joke. Harmless, I thought. When I returned to the hotel room, the messages started coming through, Mark asking if I was safe, if I was having fun. I felt a pang of guilt, but I dismissed it. I didn't want to admit that I was already bracing myself for his mild lecture, which I fully expected when I got home. He'd laugh, shake his head, maybe roll his eyes, but it would all be fine. I would come back and everything would return to normal. What I didn't realize was that the little trip I planned as a harmless lesson for Mark had already started teaching me one, and it wasn't the lesson I wanted. The next morning, I lounged in bed, scrolling through my phone. My heart skipped a beat when I saw a string of messages that weren't what I expected. Short, clipped sentences from Mark, nothing angry, nothing pleading, just empty. He asked when I would be home, but the tone was strange. I shrugged, telling myself he was probably just busy. But then the first hint of doubt crept in, a subtle unease I couldn't shake. By the time I returned home, the air was thick with something unspoken. The door opened to silence. The smell of our apartment felt alien. I called out, "Mark?" Nothing. I set down my bags and noticed a note on the counter, simple, almost clinical, "We need to talk. I'm not sure this is working anymore." My stomach dropped. I read it again, hoping I had misunderstood. No, the words were clear. Mark appeared in the living room, calm, collected, eyes avoiding mine. That same calm I had once loved now felt cold, impenetrable. "Vanessa," he said, his voice steady, "I think this trip you took, it made me realize a lot." I tried to smile, to joke, to ease the tension, but he held up a hand. "I don't want jokes. I want honesty." And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about the trip itself. It wasn't about the late nights, the drinks, the laughter. It was about respect, about trust, about boundaries I had assumed could be pushed without consequence. He continued, "I've been patient, I've been understanding, but I can't pretend anymore that this doesn't affect me. I feel like I don't matter when you act like this behind my back." I opened my mouth to defend myself, to say it was harmless, to insist that I was just trying to show him I was independent, but no words came out. Because deep down I knew he was right. The trip wasn't the problem, it was the way I treated him, the way I dismissed his feelings, the way I assumed he would always forgive me. He paused, his eyes scanning mine, waiting for something I couldn't give. "I need space," he said finally. "I need to know that you see me, that you respect me. I don't know if we can go back to the way things were." My chest tightened, panic and regret mingling in a suffocating knot. I wanted to grab him, to beg, to explain, but he turned, walked to the bedroom and shut the door softly but firmly. I spent the evening replaying every detail of the trip, every text, every laugh, every omission. What I thought was clever, innocent, playful, it was careless. And now the cost was clear. A man who had once seemed untouchable, devoted, and patient was suddenly distant, like a stranger occupying the same space but no longer the same heart. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch, staring at the note, at the empty apartment, at the silence that pressed against me. My mind raced with possibilities, excuses, hopes. Maybe he would talk to me tomorrow. Maybe he just needed time. Maybe he would see that it was all harmless fun, that I loved him, that I hadn't meant to hurt him. But somewhere deep down I knew, this wasn't just about time. This wasn't a lesson I could teach him, it was a revelation for me. I had underestimated the consequences of carelessness, of assuming love could survive thoughtless actions. I had assumed that affection and loyalty were unbreakable, that they could withstand jokes, dares, little tests. And I had been wrong. Dead wrong.